Federico.
Yeah.
We have been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah.
And finally, we will hear your presentation in English.
Yes.
About the solar market, the PV market in Italy. But please start telling me for how long you've been with Italia Solare and how come you live in Vaxholm and Vasastan.
Okay. Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Anna, for this invitation, and thanks to all for being here this morning. I am in Italia Solare since the beginning, which was end of 2015, and I've been working in the solar sector in the last 17 years. I've always been working in association, so I never been in companies. I've never been developing projects or so on. So I'm quite experienced on association life. How come I'm in Sweden? Yeah, a couple of years ago, it was March 2020, when the wave of pandemia impacted the whole world. As you may be aware that in Italy, restrictions has been very strong, and with my family, simply decided not to be in Italy during restrictions. And as far as the mother of my son is a Swedish citizen, that's why we came here in Sweden. So that's it.
Fair enough. Shoot.
Okay, so what I will talk about this morning is just an introduction about Italia Solare. I will step into a brief overview of the electricity market, and then to dig deep into the PV in Italy. So I will talk about the different segments and what are the state of the market and which are the market drivers for the different segments. Then, as Anna requested to me, I will try to focus on renewable energy communities. Unfortunately, not much has changed since the last time we met, because there was supposed to be new legislation for renewable communities, but as a matter of fact, there was no new legislation. So it's all as it was a couple of months ago. Few words about Italia Solare. Italia Solare is the main Italian solar PV industry association. We represent over 800 members, which includes tier 1 manufacturers, developers, investors, installer, project designer, traders, IPP utilities. So I would say we represent the whole value chain. Our community, our followers, I would say, are more than 50,000, which are professionals nationwide. Internally, we work we have 15 working groups, which is where the heart of the association beats. It's where all the companies or the members debate, they network, they discuss about different topics, and that's where the position paper of the association are built. Just to make some example, we have working groups for storage, for energy market, for legislation, for fiscal aspect, finance, and so on. We do also have 38 regional representatives, which cover all the 20 Italian regions. This is crucial for Italy to be present in the regions, because if some of you are developing projects in Italy, you may understand that every single region has a different legislation and procedures in terms of permitting. So that's why we decide to have a representative in different regions as well. What we offer to our members is the typical, our main core activity is lobby, of course. We have two persons, which are always in Rome to work with politicians. We provide consultancy to members, training, networking, matchmaking. We give our members different tools, which are both online, offline, to to match, to network, to meet each other, and this many times leads also to like commercial relationship within partners, within members. The last slide about association. We are members of different associations. The two on your left side are Italian association. Then on your right hand side, you can see, of course, Solar Power Europe. And then we are proudly founding members of Worldwide Carbon Price and the Global Solar Council. And that was like the introduction part about our association. And then in a later stage, if someone is interested in Italia Solare, I can have like a private chat with some of you. How's the electricity market in Italy? So on which energy resources Italians rely on for the electricity? That picture was taken at the end of 2021, before the conflict in Ukraine started. So the estimates might be a bit lower than they are really today. But in my opinion, they are not that far. And then I will tell you why, despite the statement of Italian government, that those estimates are still valid. So the idea is to get to 2030 with 25% of solar PV in the generation mix, to reduce strongly the fossil fuels and increase both wind and geothermal. As for hydro, I know that in Sweden is one of the main sources, maybe the most important. In Italy, unfortunately, we are suffering a lot the climate changes, and rain is even every year less and less. So estimates on 2030, even if there are some revamping, some repowering activity on an hydropower plant, the estimates are not that bright. In terms of solar, I show you which are the government target up to 2030, and I split the estimates in 2030 in 4 parts. We in 2030, according to the government, they would like to get to fed into the grid 20 more gigawatt, thanks to the revamping of the current power plant. Then 2 gigawatt for repowering. They estimated 10 gigawatts of distributed solar PV, and then 20 gigawatt of utility scale. So that's very promising. The market is very active. The other day, 2 days ago, I was in a meeting with the Italian TSO, which name is Terna, and I wrote down some numbers during the meeting. As at the end of April 22, in Italy, we have 150 gigawatts of connection to the grid request for onshore renewables, 60 gigawatt of offshore renewables. Those are connection requests to the high voltage power lines, and plus 22 gigawatt of storage. So that means that the market is very active and hot. But then I will get into the what are the bottleneck. But first, let me give you some few more information about the Italian electricity grid. As you can see, we have like 19 kilometers of high voltage power lines, 350,000 medium voltage, 800,000 low voltage, above 2,300 the primary substations. Those are this number, primary substation, will become useful for you when we have the focus on renewable energy. So keep in mind this number. 450, around 450 seconds in these substations. I also tried to make an example of the structure of the electricity bill for residential user. We have like three main type of fee: the fee for energy, the fee for metering plus dispatching, and the so-called system fees, which are, by the way, not applied to residential consumer user Q4 21. So energy as fixed variable fee, and metering dispatching as fixed fee in euro per year, euro per kilowatt per year, and of course the variable one, which is the energy fee. Just to make an example of how it is going, the energy prices for residential user in Italy. So we, in the second quarter of 22, we see like since a couple of years, the first decrease on the energy price. So that's at some extent a good news for end user, but for photovoltaics can be like, okay, and it's fair to have a low energy price, but maybe for PV installation residential level, it's not one of the best news. But that's how more or less it's like the electricity market in Italy. So I'm not an expert of an energy market, so I will like change now to the main expertise, which is photovoltaics. Where we are today. Today we are at 23 gigawatt, almost of power installed in my country. The number you see in for 2022 on the graph on the left side refer to Q1, and compared to last year Q1 we have a plus 116%. So which means maybe finally this year we will go again above the gigawatt installation. So in fact, estimates are between 1.5 and 2 gigawatt this year. And we are above 1 million of power plants connected to the grid. Let's split those numbers. As you can see, the assumptions for me is that until 20 kilowatt peak, we consider it residential. Between 20 kilowatt peak and 1 megawatt peak, we consider it a C&I. And above 1 megawatt, we consider it utility scale. So made this assumption. The main takeaway from this slide are that in terms of cumulative power installed, the C&I segment is the more relevant. It's above the 50% of the power installed in Italy is at C&I in the C&I segment, while residential and utility scale, they are more or less like the same in terms of power. But when it comes to number of power plants installed, I mean, there's no comparison. The residential is absolutely the predominant segment for in Italy. We have like, 900,000 residential roofs covered with PV. Let me now go to talk about every single segment and which are the drivers for every single segment. So let's start from the residential. In terms of number of power plants, it's very relevant. We have almost 5 gigawatts at the residential level, and the average power is 5.4. Maybe this number is I think is much lower than in Sweden. I think the average power at the residential level is around 6 or maybe 7. I think this has to be related to the size of the roof. Here in Sweden, I noticed that the roof surface is larger than in my country. So that's the connection, I bet. What are the market drivers and what is the outlook for this segment? In the last couple of years, the residential market has been driven by a tax rebate, basically. We have still today an exceptional tax rebate, which was launched right after the COVID exploded in my country. It's a tax rebate of 110%, so which means taxpayers are paid to install solar PV plants, but not only. It's not a super bonus. It's a super bonus is for all the buildings. So it was meant for the building sector, but then it was included also the solar photovoltaics. But the 110% is not really like this, because today we are the final user. I mean, the residential user can really get from this tax rebate is around 92%, because the rest is taken by the different actors on the value chain and also the banks, of course. Until the end of 2022, there will be super bonus. After that, no super bonus anymore. And I would say, thanks God, no more super bonus. And I will tell you why I did this statement. So from there will be again the usual tax rebate, which is 50% over 10 years. And this has been in place since maybe 6 or 7 years, and it works very well. No complication, so that this is the next. This is going to be the driver again from the next year. Then, thanks to the renewable directive, European Euro directive, there will be a requirement for new buildings to install PV system. And then, of course, self-consumption and energy community will be a big driver. Let me have a focus on the tax rebate on the super bonus 110%. Of course, installation, the process that installation are incentivized. There has been a relaunch of the residential PV sector. There was like a boost to employment, even only temporary. We are already talking about people which is going to be fired, of course. But the 110% is it's too generous, and there is no any phase out. So we will go from 110% tax rebate back to 50%. So no phase out for that. So this contributes to create a market bubble and a contribution also to surging material prices. Well, together with the macroeconomic situation, the bureaucracy behind the super bonus is quite demanding, and of course there is no certainty about the duration of the measure. Today they say until the end of 2022, and this might change in the next few weeks. I talk about storage in the residential segment, because today the driving segment for storage is residential. As you can see, in 2021 we have a big ramp up of the annual installation in terms of this is in terms of number. This still, again, thanks to the super bonus 110%, we have this big push on storage system. And so mainly at the residential level, and we don't have basically storage system at the C&I and utility scale so far. So super bonus, thanks to the super bonus, we had a big installation. From next year, storage will benefit from the 50% tax rebate over 10 years. Then, of course, the self-consumption energy communities will be driver, and still today is a driver. Then recently, the Energy Authority has published regulation for picking and places, which I don't know if it's correct in English, but basically, if you have a storage system, you can take the energy from the grid and then sell it back to the grid when it's more convenient. So this service is remunerated, so it's paid by the Energy Authority. So this is one driver. And we do also have the capacity market in Italy, because as you can see on the box, on the orange box, for the auction for 2024, 1.1 gigawatt of storage was granted by the capacity market, which means in 2024, we will have at the utility scale level, 1.1 gigawatt of storage installed. What to expect soon? There will be hybrid auctions. I wrote PV, but I think it's renewables plus storage. And also soon the Energy Authority will publish a new regulation for frequency and voltage regulation services, which will be remunerated for storage system. Let's now step into the C&I segment, which is very, very interesting. The cumulative installed power is slightly above 12.5 gigawatt, and the total number of power plants is almost 78,000, with an average power of 161 kilowatt peak. Why this segment is interesting? Of course, energy prices are like a big driver, especially for company. And as far as they are they were high even before the crisis for small medium enterprises, and they are still today. So that's the big driver. So we have Fair One decree. For those who are not familiar with this decree, it's basically a registry and auction system which grants incentive for photovoltaics power plant above 20 kilowatt peak. There is one last call by the end of this month, but we've heard that soon there will be like a new incentive, and the scheme for the incentive will be slightly different. There will be direct access to incentive for solar power plant with a nominal power below 1 megawatt, while all those above 1 megawatt peak, there will be auctions. So new incentive system. Energy prices, I said. Then we have, if you are an agricultural farmers and you decide to install your PV roof on your roof, you get a 40% tax rebate on top of other subsidies. Also for this market segment, self-consumption and energy communities is quite interesting. Then we have the so-called bonus south, which is a specific tax credit system for companies who has the base in southern Italy. But in this case, the investment is to be linked to broader investment, not only PV. It has to be, a new automation system, a new safety system, and if in the whole investment is also included photovoltaics, you can get the tax credit. And there are regional initiatives as well to support small and medium enterprises. Sometimes are interest-free loans, and sometimes are simply non-repayable loans.
Federico, we have a question. Do you have subsidies for agrivoltaics on ground?
I will come to agri-photovoltaics in a few slides.
Oh, perfect. One more question from the chat. One other. Is there any energy tax on self-consumption?
Energy tax on tax in terms of taxation or in terms of subsidy?
Is there any tax? I mean, do you pay tax if you produce 1 kilowatt hour and you use it yourself at home? Do you pay tax on that?
Part of the tax you still pay because still you are supposed to pay fixed cost for the meter, for the dispatching. It's for the metering,
Okay, so you pay for the metering to the grid company, but you don't pay tax.
No, you don't pay the energy basically. So you don't pay tax on this tariff, on this fee. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just feel free to interrupt me anytime there is a question on what I'm talking about. Okay. So that we don't go too much further to the question.
Federico.
Yes, sir.
Ciao. I do have actually on the slide that you were showing about storage in the PV sector, that one, I wanted to ask you, is it that it was the increasing in 2021 and the decreasing in 2022, but why? Because here in Sweden, we do have a different situation. We have a more increasing now, 2022, for just the storage at home and residential than 2021 because of the evolution of the storage technology and everything.
Yeah, thank you for this question, because I think it's relevant, because I forgot to mention that the number I'm showing here for 2022 is only related to the Q1. So if you want to make a forecast and make this number times 4, so we will have a more or less precise forecast for end of 2022. So our forecast is that at the end of 2022, we will have around 80,000 new storage system connected to the grid. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Grazie mille.
You're welcome, prego. Okay, I go back to the utility scale, which relates to the number about the TSO I was mentioning early on my presentation. So we have hundreds of gigawatts waiting to be connected to the grid. But as of today, we have almost 5 gigawatts. We have like around 1,300 power plants at utility scale level with an average power of 3.75 megawatt. First, I want to talk about market drivers and outlook. Then I will talk about the permitting, which is the real bottleneck as all around Europe. We can learn this from any Solar Power Europe meeting. So for utility scale, we have like grid and dispatching cost exemptions. So you don't pay those fee for PV plants which are connected through direct lines. Then we have incentive by auctions also for agri-photovoltaics. So I come to your question, Anna. So it's part of the implementation of European Renewable Directive. We are waiting for the implementing decrees, which all of them were supposed to be by the end of June, but still we lack many of implementation decrees because as a consequence of the conflict in Ukraine, the government and the parliament have been busy to write down emergency law decrees. But maybe Dan remember that last time we met in Brussels, I was talking about the solar bet, and during our association meeting, at that time it was a proposal our association made to the government and the parliament. And finally, our proposal has been accepted by the parliament. So now it's law, which means what is the solar belt? Basically, it's a simplified go-to area for PV plants which reside on agricultural areas or bordering industrial areas. Of course, those areas has to be without any cultural constraints. But if this is the case, okay, you have a very simplified permitting for power plants up to 1 megawatt in areas which are within 500 meters from industrial area borders. And for agri-photovoltaics, we are talking about power PV plants up to 20 megawatts can be installed in areas up to 3 kilometers from industrial area borders. And those will be authorized with simplified processes. So that's a good news, which means from tomorrow all the authorization process will be smooth in those areas and for those kind of power plants. But the real bottleneck is this one, my dear colleagues, because basically the number I was telling before, those are, I mean, it's like 150 onshore, 60 offshore, 22 gigawatt of storage. And the TSO were saying, well, we exist because we are supposed to plan the grid infrastructure, but today we have like so many connection requests, while the daily peak in Italy is between 58 and 60 gigawatts. So that's the first problem for the TSO. The second problem is that apart from the solar belt, which it's already a law, but at the national and the regional level, we still don't have like a clear definition of go-to areas. And also we don't have a clear picture of what is gonna be the burden sharing. So as a consequence, also the TSO is sort of standing still to elaborate all these connection requests, because as you may understand or guess, the majority of the connection requests are in South Italy. The consumption the bulk of the energy consumption is not in Southern Italy. So for the TSO, the problem is to connect the north and the south with the proper infrastructure, which for them it's a big investment, of course. So looking at those numbers, so since 2018 until end of 2021, those are like numbers referred to the end of 2021, and the elaboration was made by this think tank, which is Elements. We are talking about 36 gigawatt. From 2018 until 2021, and the permits issued are only the 10% of the request. So this is the trend. I mean, 10% of the request for connection they are issued. agro-photovoltaics, okay, the first bullet point refers to, there was supposed to be a picture here on the right, on the left, it's disappeared, I'm sorry. So the first bullet point refers to the solar belt. Then we have the second bullet point, which refers to the next generation, the recovery plan for Italy, which includes also a 1 gigawatt of agro-photovoltaic power plants up to 2030. As I said before, there will be incentive for the agro-photovoltaics. We are also in the process of guidelines and definition. Basically, once the guidelines and definition are set by the Ministry for the Energy Transition, we will have a clear picture of what kind of power plants can be defined as agri-PV. As an association, we have forwarded to the Ministry for the Energy Transition position paper where we suggest from our point of view, but not only, because we agreed the position paper with Farmers Association, what the agro-PV should be. So hopefully there will be a definition coming very soon. And the last point is the high level of interest from the farmers. Why I put this? Because as an association, we are registering an interesting trend. We have average 30 new members every month subscribing to our association, and there are always 3-4 farmers which become members. And also in Italy now we have every week since the last 2 months we have an event, online, offline, hybrid, which is around agro-photovoltaics. So I feel like sharing with you that the agro-photovoltaics is attracting a lot of interest. As Italia Solare, we in a couple of weeks we organize an event in Sardinia, and it will be specifically for agro-photovoltaics.
We do have a question on agrivoltaics also in the chat. What about the 1.1 billion support for agri-PV?
It is the one which is referring to 1 gigawatt. So those are going to be funds coming from the recovery plan, and they will be in the form of incentive, which will be given to agri-photovoltaics installation.
Okay, was that answer to your question, Bengt?
Okay. I was thinking about that. This 1.1 billion euro that was announced 1 year ago. So I was thinking that you already had some.
No, not yet. Not yet. No, it's because before those money, those are the money which are supposed to be given as subsidy. But in order to give subsidies, the Ministry for the Energy Transition has to come up with guidelines and definition, so that the GSE, which is the institutional body which make contracts for subsidies with investors, before give incentive, they need also to know what kind of power of what the guideline and the definition. And also one of the requirements for agri-photovoltaics in Italy will be monitoring of the power plants and what is growing below the power plants. So we still don't have a clear idea of what is going to be this.
So do you think it will be a limitation kind of that you cannot reduce the crop yield with a certain percentage to be called agrivoltaics? Do you think that will come in Italy?
So far the general guidelines says that the installation is supposed not to affect the growing of crops or what is below. So this is the general prescription so far, and we have already several application permits which are confirming that the project will not affect. So there will be some limitation, I bet, but what I see is that players are trying to make projects very together with farmers. So in my opinion, there will be a good compromise between the two requirements. farmers and energy producers. So I think now I will step on the last focus, which is renewable energy. What I was saying is that this slide is the one I showed to you a couple of months ago, and there's no any news. Renewable energy communities in Italy were introduced in December 2019 by an omnibus decree, and it took 1 year to set the rules. And at the end of 2020, we started the so-called experimentation phase. So it's been in place since 1.5 years. And those are the subsidies which has been defined for the experimentation phase, which is 110 euro per megawatt hour given to the community for the energy they share. If they don't share the energy and they want to sell it to the grid, the incentive is 70 euro per megawatt hour. And the last number is what the renewable energy community save on system tariff for the energy shared. So those are the incentives which are supposed to change with the next phase. I will tell you a bit more. Yeah. Of course, I mean, we also the implementation of renewable energy communities is lacking behind because all the government and the parliament are delayed those implementing decrees, but this is not new from my experience. So on the left column, you see what was the experimentation phase. So the perimeter of the community was in the substation. The maximum plant size 200 kilowatts, and those are the main two differences. While once we have the implementing decree, the community will be built around the primary substation, and the size of a single power plant will be maximum 1 megawatt. Also, subjects admitted to the community will be apart family, small, medium enterprises, local authorities, NGO, research, and religious institutes. So it's been broadened, the subjects which will be able to participate to renewable energy communities. This slide is to answer to one of the questions which is being forwarded to me. So, according to our experience so far, what is needed really to improve the efficiency of the whole renewable energy community system is to have an easier access to substation data, as it's very important to have an easier access to quarterly consumption data, the procedures, but this is something, unfortunately, very Italian procedures are always complicated, so which leads to cost. So we ask for, as an association, we ask for easier and cheaper procedures. Also at the regional level, we are working with the different regions to help them to provide clear and common information to the prosumers. And the last one is, yes, of course, and the growing interest on renewable energy community also from small and medium enterprise. But this is something I said. Some outlook still from the think tank elements. So according to this think tank, if we talk about the distributed PV, we are talking about 14.5 gigawatts up to 2030. Half 7.1 will be on self-consumption at the one single family house level, while 7.4 gigawatt will be for renewable energy communities. In terms of investment, we are talking about 6 to 7 billions up to 2030. And who will be involved in the distributed PV up to 2030? So the majority will be housing, but also the forecasts are promising for small and medium enterprises and the small slices of market for public administration, farmers, and service industries. I think that was the last slide. Sorry for being a bit longer than expected, but there was some question.
Thank you very much, Federico. How is your grid managing such increase of PV installations? And can you mention something about fire test requirements for PV in Italy?
We do have like a new regulation which will come in force in July. And I cannot tell much now because I'm still studying. I'm still have to, you know, to open that dossier and understand what's new on the place there. But I can come back to you with this information.
We will give everybody your email address. How is your grid managing the large increase?
Well, actually, we had the meeting a couple of days ago with the TSO, and I mean I can say that they are a bit in trouble because they are having so much connection requests. So the timing to get a feedback from them is taking longer and longer, and they would like to invest, but at the same time they don't know what is going to be the go-to area, the burden sharing of different regions. So still they are like standing still, waiting for the government resolution on that, and the regional resolution. So far they are of course they are active. What they said that they communicate very often with the Ministry for Energy Strategy, so they update on the situation of connection requests. But it looks like to me that they are ready for invest, but they don't know where exactly to invest until they will know the go-to areas and the burden sharing.
Can you say something short on energy storage in Italy?
It's very interesting. It's promising. The connection request, the 22 gigawatt connection request to the TSO are not focused in only one geographical area, but all equally distributed around the country. And we have some pilot projects which provide incentive to storage. And within the next 2-3 years, I think the storage will be accessible in terms of economics, also without big incentives. So prices are expected to go down steeply in the next 2-3 years.
Jättehärligt. Tack så hemskt mycket, Federico. Har vi någon muntlig fråga så får ni unmuta er nu snabbt och fråga.
Anna?
Vi skickar. Daniel, varsågod.
Ja, jag har en fråga. Federico?
Yes.
I was thinking, just because the situation in Sweden is getting more and more about building integrated photovoltaic, how is it the situation in Italy?
The concept of building integrated was very popular during the first wave of incentive because there was an extra incentive for building integrated. But today, I would say that the building integrated is not like a popular concept. But in my experience today, we have all the power plants, the new power plants installed on the roof, all of them are building integrated by default, because this is how you don't have any problem with the permitting, even at the residential level.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome.
Tack Federico. Have a wonderful Thursday och ha så roligt på din sons första svenska skolavslutning också, Federico.
Yes, thank you very much.
Det blir nog väldigt roligt. Tack allihopa.